Welcome back to our module on creating agile governance. So in this session, we're going to look at the process for our operational meetings. You remember in the first two, we looked at more of the basic principles and the approach. In the last one, we looked at the governance meeting structure. Governance meetings being for dealing with any issues related to how we run the organization. And the operational meetings are really for dealing with the what, making sure that we stay coordinated, connected, and focused around the what of what we're doing. So what you see on the image here are a number of different steps that we take in the operational meeting. So first is the check-in round. And I mentioned it in the governance meetings, a good way of bringing everybody into the room, making sure that we let go of stuff that's on our mind just by making it explicit, and can then bring ourselves really present to the questions that are at hand. So the first thing we do once we've checked in is we go to the checklist review. And the goal of the checklist review is to bring transparency to all of our recurring actions. So we have a list of next actions that we're going to be working on, and so we'll move through them very quickly. It's a very rapid process. It's quite a high energy in the operational meetings. We move through and go, okay, how are we? Is this action complete? If not, what's the status update? And move on to the next one. So it makes sure that everybody stays informed and can make any connections that they need to around next actions. Having done that, we move to the metrics review, and the goal of that is to build a picture of our current reality. So the metrics can include sales figures, how many people have enrolled for a certain course or something, any of the data that we're gathering around our performance as an organization that can help us become more aware of where we're at, how things are going, and inform decisions as we move forward. The project updates. So within our organization, we'll have a number of projects. Within those projects, there'll be a number of actions. So we'll zoom in on the projects and just get a status update on where we are with the projects and any connections that need to be made to move the project forward. So we've got those initial phases are gathering information and gathering data. And those then inform the next step, which is the agenda building. So we build an agenda, we build it quickly, and we build it by just asking what are the points people need to bring in so that we can move forward with all the projects and actions. And they're just placeholder items. So what you want to avoid is that people actually start going into the agenda items as we're just capturing them. Initially, it's just like a capture. List them out, boom, 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 boom. And then we move through them as we triage the issues. So in that, you take an issue and you work out what is it that's needed. So you're saying, I've got to move forward on this project. I need to work with so-and-so and so-and-so. When are we going to do that? So you can just make the arrangements that enable you to move forward on the different actions. There may be an issue that requires a little more attention, and as you delve into it, you find that actually it's a governance issue. Actually, there's a question underlying it that's more about the how. So then you don't try to deal with it then, but you park it in the governance agendas and work with it in that kind of context. So you basically just move through them as quickly as possible, keeping the pace and the focus. Anything that starts to take any longer normally is because there's an underlying issue that isn't really operational, but is more related to governance or strategy. You then move into the closing round, and it's just a question of harvesting any learning from the meeting. So it's when you've been in quite a fast meeting context, which the operational meeting is. It's a chance to just settle down again and reflect back to each other what we've learned from this process. Maybe there's questions which we still have that we can then talk about informally afterwards. But it's a way of, in the same way that we opened it in the circle, bringing everybody in a way it's a way of checking out of the process and just capturing our learning. So this is maybe a process that you can implement more simply on your own than the governance process. It's it might sound fairly familiar in different elements. It does have a discipline to it again, like the governance. So having somebody who maybe has experience in this area could be useful. But it's requires less sensitivity, I'd say, than the governance process. The governance process really needs you to sink into the issue, to really feel into the tensions, to do the integrative decision-making process well. And this is much more on the surface level, you could say. So you could immediately start practicing some of these and sharing with each other how it works for you. So that's the end of this session and the end of the module as a whole, where we've been looking at the basic principles for agile governance. Why agile governance? Because we're in a very fast changing and complex operating environment, and we need to be able to have organizational processes and structures that help us to navigate through these turbulent times. So we've got some principles for that now, and we've got a couple of practices that we can start implementing in our own contexts to try it out. And maybe we find some work and some don't, so we kind of pick and choose what really works for you in your contexts, and by all means, look at evolving them. So now you can move on to the integration task to start sharing your experience with each other about how you've been trying to implement some of these, or practices maybe that you have that we haven't talked about here but really help you stay agile as an organization. Really look to support your fellow students in sharing those practices and experiences so that together we can grow to be more effective in this work. And don't forget to do your personal development modules that keep you aligned with this kind of approach in the world.